In the year 2169, a radical genetic breakthrough has fundamentally reshaped human existence. By altering the human genome, scientists have eradicated the aging process, allowing people to stop aging at 25. Once they reach this age, a green, glowing clock on their forearm activates, beginning a countdown. This clock, a stark reminder of their mortality, displays their remaining living time. When the clock reaches zero, death is instantaneous and irreversible. This new reality has created a world where time itself is the ultimate currency, a tangible asset that can be transferred from person to person through a simple physical touch. Society is stratified into specialized time zones, with a chasm of wealth separating the classes. The impoverished masses are sequestered in ghettos like Dayton, a gritty, bustling district where the young are the majority. Here, life is a constant, desperate struggle. People work grueling jobs just to earn a few hours of life, which is then immediately spent on basic necessities like food, rent, or a bus fare. The rich, meanwhile, reside in the opulent, serene city of New Greenwich, a place of eternal youth where the inhabitants, though chronologically old, appear to be forever 25. They possess centuries, even millennia, of time, affording them a form of practical immortality. This is the world of Will Salas, played by Justin Timberlake, a 28-year-old factory worker living in Dayton with his mother, Rachel, played by Olivia Wilde. One evening, Will's life is irrevocably altered. He saves a wealthy man named Henry Hamilton from a time robbery attempt by a ruthless street gang called the Minute Men, led by the menacing Fortis. Hamilton, a 105-year-old man who has grown weary of his endless life, reveals a dark truth to Will: for a few to be immortal, many must die. He explains that the system is a carefully constructed facade. There is enough time for everyone to live a full life, but it has been deliberately hoarded by the elite. The rich maintain control by constantly raising the cost of living in the ghettos, forcing the poor to die out so that the elite's immortality can be preserved. Hamilton, having lost the will to live, tells Will, "Your mind can be spent, even if your body is not. We want to die. We need to." That night, in a final act of rebellion and despair, Hamilton transfers his vast fortune of 116 years to a sleeping Will, leaving himself with only 5 minutes. He then walks to a bridge and, as his time runs out, he calmly falls into the river below. Will arrives moments too late to save him. The incident is investigated by the Timekeepers, a resident police force dedicated to enforcing the time laws. The young, pragmatic timekeeper Yeager deduces that Hamilton timed out, but his world-weary superior, Raymond Leon, played by Cillian Murphy, is convinced that Hamilton was murdered and that Will is the prime suspect. The next morning, Will, with his newfound time, visits his best friend, Borrell, and shares his good fortune, giving him 10 years as a token of their long friendship. Will's joy, however, is short-lived. He waits for his mother, Rachel, at a bus station, only to discover that the price of a bus ticket has suddenly spiked, a common occurrence designed to cull the population. Without enough time for the fare, Rachel is forced to make the 2-hour walk home. In a desperate panic, she begins to run, her time rapidly dwindling. Will races to find her, and they meet in the middle of the road. She leaps into his arms, but as their fingers touch, her time expires. She collapses and dies, a tragic victim of the system. Fueled by grief and rage, Will vows to dismantle the system that killed his mother. With over a century on his clock, he leaves Dayton for New Greenwich. The journey itself is a trial, as he has to spend a significant amount of his time to cross the time zone borders, a built-in barrier to keep the poor out. Upon his arrival, he immediately heads to a high-stakes casino where he meets the powerful time-loaning magnate, Philippe Weiss, and his beautiful, restless daughter, Sylvia, played by Amanda Seyfried. Sylvia, intrigued by the young man from the ghetto, watches as Will gambles, wagering almost his entire century against her father. He wins, and she invites him to a lavish party at their mansion. The night takes a turn when Leon appears at the mansion. He arrests Will and confiscates almost all of his time, leaving him with a mere 2 hours. In a desperate attempt to escape, Will takes Sylvia hostage. They return to the ghetto, only to be ambushed by Fortis and the Minute Men. Fortis, disgusted to find that Will has lost Hamilton's time, robs Sylvia of most of her time as well, fleeing when the timekeepers arrive. Will, regaining consciousness, transfers a precious few hours to Sylvia so she doesn't die. They visit Burrell's home to retrieve the time he gave him, only to learn from Burrell's heartbroken wife, Greta, that he had already drank himself to death, burdened with his 9 years of life. With seconds to spare, they pawn Sylvia's expensive jewelry for a paltry 2 days of time. Will calls Weiss, demanding a 1,000-year ransom for Sylvia, to be distributed to the people of Dayton. Leon, having traced the call, begins his pursuit. Despite Weiss's refusal to pay the ransom, Will chooses to release Sylvia. Just as he does, Leon appears and attempts to arrest him. Sylvia, in a moment of defiance, grabs Leon's gun and shoots him in the shoulder. Will, seeing the timekeeper wounded and his clock dangerously low, transfers 2 hours of his own time to Leon so he can survive. They escape in Leon's patrol car and begin a new, dangerous life of crime. Will explains to Sylvia that she still has a chance to return to her privileged life, but she refuses, stating that her old life now feels meaningless. Together, they become modern-day Robin Hoods, robbing time banks and distributing the stolen time capsules to the poor. Their actions earn them a bounty of 10 years on their heads. Fortis, hungry for revenge, tracks them down and challenges Will to a time fight, a physical brawl where the goal is to grab your opponent's wrist and transfer their time. Will, using a technique his late father taught him, defeats Fortis. Will and Sylvia soon realize that their small-scale robberies are futile. The elites simply raise the cost of living to counteract their efforts. They decide to hit Weiss's private headquarters and steal 1,000,000 years, a move that would truly disrupt the system. As they make their escape, Will tells Weiss that no one should be immortal if a single person has to die. Leon, still in pursuit, crashes into their car. Will, knowing his time is almost up, manages to hand the time capsule to a young girl who distributes the time among the waiting masses. Leon catches up with Will and Sylvia, holding them at gunpoint. Will, observing Leon's weary demeanor and different approach to justice, correctly deduces that he was once from the ghettos himself. As a joke, Will asks Leon to return some of the time he loaned him. The words strike a chord, and Leon suddenly realizes he had forgotten to replenish his own time. He dies instantly. Will and Sylvia are left with seconds to live. In a scene that tragically mirrors his mother's death, Will rushes to Leon's car and takes his remaining time, transferring it to Sylvia just as her own clock reaches zero. The film ends with Will and Sylvia continuing their crusade, robbing a massive time bank and creating a seismic shift in the social order. News reports show the factories where Will once worked are now abandoned, as the newly wealthy workers have crossed into the richer time zones. The timekeepers can only watch as the system crumbles before their eyes. Will and Sylvia, with a new bounty of 100 years on their heads, prepare to continue their fight for a more equitable world. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more movie breakdowns and content. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the recap. Do you think Will and Sylvia's rebellion could actually work? Let us know in the comments below.